Happy Sunday, everyone. I'm Reverend Eric Gates from Faith United Church of Christ in Bryan, Texas, and it's such a joy to be here with you all on this Sunday as we bring to you our Holy Humor Sunday. Holy Humor is an event that has gone on for quite some time in the Christian tradition, and it's where we as ministers make fun of ourselves. It's also where we try to bring laughter to you all in the greater church, and I think laughter is very important. And the scripture that we base this off of comes from Psalm 126, when the Israelites came out of captivity after losing some battles and they were brought back to the Holy Land by God. They were able to sing songs and just live life with joy and laughter. And I'm excited to be here with you all in this moment because God is present. Let each of you give thanks for God's goodness, God's love, and know that God is there with you, enduring forever. In the shadows of this pandemic, God is our strength and our energy. In these long days at home, God has become our salvation. The church has left the building, but here we are. We are still being the church, and that's something to be joyful about. So whether it's in our homes or apartments, dad jokes, bad jokes, and laughter continues. God is determined to help us through this time. So from our cellars and rooftops, from kitchens and bathrooms, let us proclaim that this is the day our Creator has made. Let us seek laughter and hope. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And with that, I would like to begin something different from a normal sermon. I would like to begin an abbreviated version of what I did with the church this morning online, and that is a stand-up comedy routine. Hope you all enjoy this show. And I want to begin with just some musings. I want to start with some interesting things. Did you know that there is no egg in eggplant? There is no ham in hamburger? And there is neither pine nor apple in a pineapple? How about this? The English muffin was not invented in England, and French fries were not invented in France. And why are boxing rings square? Shouldn't they be called boxing squares? I don't know. Maybe this one will blow your mind. A guinea pig is actually not from Guinea, and it's not a pig. Interesting things. Here are some questions for you all to ponder. If writers write, how come fingers don't fing? If the plural of tooth is teeth, shouldn't the plural of phone booth be phone beeth? If the teacher taught, why didn't the preacher prot? I ask myself that one quite often. Go figure this. Why do people recite at a play, yet play at a recital? Why do we park on driveways and drive on parkways? Or when a house burns up, we say it burned down. Or when you fill in a form, you say you filled it out. When the stars are out, they're visible, we can see them. But when the lights are out, they're invisible. Or when I wind up my watch, it starts. But when I wind up my sermon, it ends. These are just some things that I want you all to think about on this Sunday. Now, I don't know how many of you out there have ever been to a Catholic sermon or Catholic Mass, but I have to tell you, my first experience with Catholic Mass was pretty interesting. I was in Marine Corps boot camp at San Diego, and the very first Sunday we were there, the drill instructor said, all right, we need two lines. One line Protestants, one line Catholics. Well, I was not a church person at the time, so I didn't know what line meant what. I didn't know what Protestants were. I didn't know what Catholics were. But I remembered a friend of mine, he grew up as a Catholic, so I just jumped into the Catholic line. Now, I need to tell you all, Catholic service was one of the longest experiences of my life. Every Sunday, I dreaded going to Catholic service because in addition to all the exercises we were doing in boot camp, it's like Catholic Mass ended up being an exercise in and of itself. Stand, sit, kneel, kneel, stand, stand, sit, kneel, kneel, sit, stand. I mean, it was just, my thighs were burning at the end of this service. It was crazy. And in addition to that, when you're singing the hymns or the songs in the church service, it seems like they go on forever. I mean, I personally would have more fun sitting in the DMV or in a hospital or doctor's waiting room than I would sitting the entirety of a Catholic Mass. I mean, it's crazy. The ah, amen. All right already. Can't we just go and like live our lives and go and do some sinning? I mean, geez, it takes forever. So yeah, think about it. Think about that Catholic Mass and how fortunate you are if you don't go to church, not to be in it, and how fortunate you are if you do go to church, if you're a Protestant church. Because I have to say, there's also something really nice about us being able to have communion in the Protestant church. You know, we're not allowed to have it in the Catholic church. All those rules and stuff set by the Pope. Anyways, one of the things that some of you may be wondering is, you know what? My church is really laid back, Pastor. Down here in the South, we've got a whole bunch of churches that are pretty interesting. And I'm going to take a little bit from Jeff Foxworthy here. And I don't know if he's ever done these jokes, but you might be in a redneck church if. So here we go. You might find yourself in a redneck church if the call to worship is this. Y'all come on in now, you hear? Go and sit down right there. Go and sit down. There you go. Y'all come on in. Keep on coming in. Come in through the doors now. Come on. Come on. Or the people grumble and complain about Noah having let coyotes on the ark. Or the preacher says, I'd like to ask Bubba to help me take up the offering. You know, the part where they pass the plates and whatnot. But when he asks for Bubba to take up the offering, 5 guys stand up and want to help with the plates and pass them around. Or how about this? Opening day of deer hunting season is actually considered a church holiday. That's a clue you might be in a redneck church. And if a member in a redneck church, they usually request to be buried in the full 4-wheel drive truck. Because as one member of a redneck church once said, I ain't never been in a hole it couldn't get me out of. You might be in a redneck church. You might be in a redneck church if finding and returning lost sheep is not just a parable, but it's actually happening in the here and now. You might be in a redneck church when people wonder about Jesus feeding the 5,000 with 2 fish. They wonder, well, did they use catfish or did he use a bass? I wonder, was it catfish or bass, Pastor? Which one? You tell me. Anyways, you might be in a redneck church. Finally, you might be in a redneck church if the final words in the blessing or the benediction are, y'all come on back now, you hear? Yeah, pretty crazy. Now, redneck church may not be for you. So here are some steps in finding the church that's right for you. So here are 4 steps. These are things that you should be keeping track of and aware of when you're looking for that next church that you want to join, whether it's online or when we eventually get back to it, it's in person. 1, anything less than handcrafted pour-over coffee is a red flag. Jesus died for the church, and yet they're only able to muster up an unevenly brewed pot of drip coffee? Please. This is an indication that they don't care about the gospel. 2, you want to make sure that the worship music only is the type of genre that you like, okay? So if you're into industrial metalcore and they only play late 90s soft rock, it's time to split. Remember this. What worship is really about, it's about you and your modern sensibilities and preferences. because church should be like Burger King. You want to have it your way. 3, you want to make sure that the minister or the preacher, whoever is leading the church, they have at least 20,000 Twitter followers. Now, you need a church who has a pastor who's not only well known and cool, but also who specializes in short, sweet, entertaining messages. Look him or her up on Twitter and verify that they have at least 20,000 followers to confirm both of these attributes. And finally, you want to pick a church where everyone pretends to be happy. That's right. If anyone breaks down sobbing or insinuates that they need prayer for some type of malady or ill fortune, well, everyone will understand if you excuse yourself to check out the other church down the road. I mean, you want a place where no one will burden you with their personal struggles. You don't need that negativity in your life, let's be honest, right? So find a church where everyone pretends to be happy. There you have it. Now you have no excuse. Go out and find your perfect church and get plugged in. Right now, get plugged in online. If not, wait until we can start all gathering again in 10 or more and get plugged in person at that time. You know, talking about sermons, this thing is so different from a normal sermon that I do. Usually my sermons tend to be like 18 to 22 minutes, somewhere around there. You can verify it on our YouTube channel. But anyways, one of the things that I learned in seminary about preaching a good sermon is this. The professor told us right off the bat, look, the key to a good sermon is to have an awesome beginning, a solid ending, and work hard to keep those two as close together as possible. Perfect sermon. Seriously though, think about it. There's a fine line between a long, drawn-out sermon and a hostage situation. I mean, can you imagine having to call 911 because your pastor keeps going on and on and on? You begin to feel like a hostage. I mean, the cops show up and they say, "Pastor, put down the Bible. Put down the Bible. Step away from the pulpit." I mean, that would be crazy to see that happening. Talking about crazy, there have been some crazy couples that I've worked with in premarital counseling and some crazy situations that have gone on. One couple that I worked with, Betty and Martin, they were about to get married, but tragically, before the wedding, they were killed in a car crash. Well, when they arrived up to the gates of heaven, they explained to St. Peter that, hey, we were about to get married, and we would still like to entertain getting married up here in heaven. And so St. Peter, he looked at him, he said, "All right, Betty and Martin, you are a deserving couple, and I want you all to wait here in the reception room. I'll be right back." Well, in heaven time frame, their wait ended up being several months at least, and then finally St. Peter returned. So Martin was sitting there and he told St. Peter, "You know what, St. Peter? We've been thinking as we've been waiting here that eternity is a long time to be married. I mean, you going away for a short time was like 3 months. We can't imagine how long marriage will be up here." And Betty chipped in, "We were wondering, if the marriage didn't work, would you be able to arrange a divorce for us?" St. Peter was exasperated. He couldn't believe what they were asking. And he finally said to them, "Look, it took me 6 days to find a priest up here in heaven. How long do you think it will take me to find a lawyer up here?" Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's right. It's right. Hold your applause. I know that was a great one. That was a good hitting joke right there. But for those of you that are married, you know what the 3 rings of marriage are, don't you? I mean, we all know the 3 rings of marriage, right? You have the engagement ring, when the people are in love and they just really enjoy that time. together and all of that. Yeah, yeah. The engagement is a fun time. And then you have the wedding ring. When you take that next step and you join together in matrimony and you stand before your wedding officiant and you proclaim your love for one another and that you're going to spend and share the rest of your lives together. Well, the third ring that you may or may not know about, and this is something that I talk to couples about quite regularly, is called the suffering. The suffering. That's right. Okay. Maybe not the best joke. I didn't get any applause on that one. But thinking about Betty and Martin going up to heaven and standing at the gates and talking to St. Peter, isn't it weird that heaven even has gates? I mean, what kind of neighborhood is heaven in? And you die and go to a gated community? That just seems really bizarre. I don't know, to me at least it seems bizarre. Maybe to you all it's normal. But think about it. Are the gates really necessary? I mean, does God not have the power to decide who comes and who goes? I mean, was God like sitting around one day and said, yeah, hey, St. Peter, we've got all these kids who keep sneaking into heaven and using the pool. I mean, wow, that's pretty crazy. And I can only imagine, were the gates easy to find? I mean, they couldn't have been hard to find, right? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they were or not. Anyways, when we die, there is presumption in Christianity that we go to heaven, that we go home to be with God and Jesus, right? Some people are very at ease with that. Others aren't. It can be a little stressful and nervous, and that's part of our faith journey and growth, is to get to that place of being okay with it. Well, let me tell you all a story about a man, his wife, and his mother-in-law who went on vacation to the Holy Land. And while they were there, the mother-in-law sadly and tragically passed away. So the man meets with the undertaker at the morgue, and the undertaker tells the couple, look, you can have your mother-in-law either shipped home for $5,000, or you can bury her here in the Holy Land for $150. The man thought about it, and he told the undertaker, you know what, we're just going to have her shipped home. The undertaker was startled, shocked actually. And the undertaker asked them, why would you spend $5,000 to ship your mother-in-law home when it would be wonderful to have her buried here in the Holy Land and spend only $150? The man replied, look, sir, what you need to understand is that there was a man who died here over 2,000 years ago. He was buried here. And 3 days later, he rose from the dead. I just can't take that chance. Yep. That's right. I brought it home with a solid Mother's Day or mother-in-law joke. And I love my mother-in-law. I'm sure you all love your mother-in-laws also. But you know what? This is all about humor. This is all about finding the humor in situations that may be stressful for us, in situations that may be hard for us. And it just helps us cope. It helps us make it through. And don't worry, everyone. We all know that God has a sense of humor. I mean, he was talking to Moses as a burning bush. A burning bush of all things? Really? A burning bush. That's crazy. I mean, can you imagine if you were the first person? Imagine yourself being the first person Moses told about that. Imagine Moses saying to you, yeah, God just talked to me as a burning bush. As a burning bush. Sure he did, Moses. And we think that maybe you've been burning some bush yourself. Everybody, thank you. That's it. That's what I've got for you today on Holy Humor Sunday. I'm so glad that you tuned in. I'm so glad that you watched and joined. And make sure to please leave your comments below. Click and like on our YouTube page. Make sure to also follow us on Facebook at Faith UCC Brian. And remember to put God in the center of your life, because God will do for you what you can't do for yourself. And recommit to love others as Jesus loved. Because ultimately, when it comes down to it, that's the best thing we can do for anyone. Whether it's showing love remotely through a text message that's uplifting and inspiring, and just saying hello to that friend that you haven't spoke to in a while, or it's giving that loved one, that family member, a hug and just letting them know what you're grateful for about them. And just taking the time to let others know what you appreciate about them. May you go in peace, and may you be surrounded with God's love, blessings, and joy, always and forever. Amen.